Welcome to Financial Insider Weekly. I'm your host, Michael Gray, CPA. My guest today is a certified financial planner, David Beck. David has a practice focusing on helping families plan for financing college educations. He has his own financial planning company called Bay Area Planners. David came to the United States from England in 1982, and he worked in product management for electronic component manufacturers, including Tyco. He saw the youth culture at high-tech companies and decided that wasn't where he wanted to be long-term, so he started a second career in financial planning. He graduated in 2006 from the financial planning program at UC Santa Cruz Extension, and in November 2006, he was trying to help his niece with financing issues for her college education, and he decided to focus on that area, and it's developed into his full-time business. He says that he finds helping people in this area to be very rewarding. So, David, thank you for being with me today. It's
My pleasure.
to have you. Okay, well, today we're going to be talking about the cost of college and how to reduce it, or how to manage it, or something. And I want to give you a caution before we get started. This is just an introduction to this area. Obviously, David's had to devote a lot of study to this, and so it's not something we can just spill all the beans in a half an hour. But help is available for further guidance. Okay, David, what is happening in the world of higher education today?
Well, there's still an affordability issue, that's for sure.
Maybe more so than ever before.
Right. It's a bad economy, and a bad economy, people want to go back to educate themselves and get on to better jobs, retrain themselves, etc. So this puts some more pressure on the educational system. What happens is that you have more people applying for college, at the same time as you have states reducing their aid for college. So what this means is, in practical terms, that class sizes increase and fees increase. So there's definitely an affordability issue.
Yuck.
The second aspect of that is, as applications rise, the admissions officers at colleges have to deal with them differently. So the weighting of what they're looking for in a student has changed. And that has meant that student positioning becomes more important.
So how they present themselves, if you will,
Yes.
is a big issue. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, we've had some news recently. So today is November 30th, 2010, as we are recording this show. So we've had news in the newspapers in the last couple of weeks that the University of California and California State University systems, David and I are in San Jose, California, they've announced more tuition price increases. And so maybe you can tell us a little bit about that and what it means in this whole picture of providing for education for our families.
Yes, it's true. The state of California is reducing its grants to these two systems, and they are trying to have to make them up. What we see in the California State Universities is that they are going to have another increase of about 5% in this coming spring of 2011. And then yet again in the fall, for the year beginning the 2011-2012 year, another 10%.
Jeez.
That's
15%.
15.5% when you compound them, up to $5,800. When you look at it back over 5 years, it's a 76% increase. Sounds a lot of people are protesting, but it's still one of the cheapest education systems in the country, in the nation. When we look behind those numbers, though, we see some strange things. In the stimulus bill, California State University has got something like $100 million to enroll extra students. They enrolled about 30,000 extra students, but the stimulus money runs out after a year. They have to continue to fund those extra students. So that explains part of the reason for the increase. Mm-hmm. Another aspect of the increase is that 1/3 of it typically goes to increased financial aid. So you take in the amount of money for the increase, but give a third of it back immediately in terms of increased financial aid. Similar story in the UC system. Their increase for 2011-12 is something like 8%, bringing it system-wide to something like $12,150 when you include all the fees. They're treating it a little bit differently. There's only the one increase, and that increase won't be charged in 2011 at any rate to families with incomes under $120,000 a year who show need. That means that not every family that earns less than $120,000 a year will actually get the benefit of not seeing the increase. It's a kind of a strange, calculation depending on financial aid needs. So, some families that increase will be delayed, and again, a third of it goes towards financial aid.
But so part of what you point out here, though, is that different income groups are going to be experiencing a little different fee increase, or whether it even applies to them or not.
Yes, and when we look outside of the public education systems into the private colleges, we also see their fees still going up. But there's an interesting report, some work done by the College Board, said that I think it's over the last 5 years, fees have, tuition and fees have increased by 24%. But actually, the net amount people pay has actually gone down slightly by 2%. So in other words, although the fees have gone up, tuition and fees have gone up, the aid, the discounting has also gone up, meaning it hasn't been as bad as it looks on paper. However, behind that, you've got to realize that these are average numbers. So if you look behind the averages, that doesn't mean to say that every family has benefited or lost out because of these tuition discounts or fee increases. So what I see is that for lower income families, they're helped more by increased financial aid. So they might actually save some money or at least pay the same. Whereas for middle income and higher income families, they are probably paying the same or paying more. There's somewhat of a shift perhaps in money from the higher income families to support the lower income families, like the progressive tax system. However, when we look at it, the amount that a family has to spend on education, on supporting their student at college, is still much easier to bear proportionally by a middle or higher income family than the low income family.
Right. Well, if you don't have much money anyway.
Yes, that's it.
Okay. Now, you mentioned that there are different weighting factors used in the college admissions process, and maybe you can explain a little bit about how that's changing.
Yes, I mentioned in the opening remarks that the increased number of applications is affecting the way that colleges work with them. The number of applications has gone up because students are able to apply more easily on the internet, apply to more colleges. They have something called a common application, which means it can be sent to a number of different colleges. So the average number of colleges that a student applies to has been going up because of effects like this. Whereas because of cost cutting, that doesn't mean to say that there are sufficient high school counselors or college admissions officers. There's not an increase in those people to cope with these applications. So that means the time allowed per application is going down. They have to become more efficient. So this is changing some of the things that they're looking for.
Wow. So maybe can you tell us anything about what they're looking for?
Yeah. So this is, the general, reported. This is how it's reported by, the National College Counselors Associations, organizations. They're saying, first of all, that letters of recommendation are becoming less important. That is because fewer high school counselors, they can spend even less time, writing a good letter of recommendation. So those letters of recommendations, without as much thought behind them, are tending to add less value to the consideration of the student. Another thing is class rank. Fewer schools are reporting class rank, so that's becoming less important. What is becoming more important in terms of what is looked for in a student getting into college is the rigorous curriculum that they're involved with. Are they challenging themselves? Are they taking AP classes if they're available at the school?
Is that advanced placement type classes?
Yes. Yes. Colleges are looking for students who come to them prepared to be able to do that level of work. So another aspect of that is they're looking for students to continue to challenge themselves during their senior year.
Mm-hmm.
They're not looking for the senior slump. The student gets through the
They don't want human beings?
get through the junior year and then relax in the senior year after you've applied and been accepted to colleges. So in actual fact, it's possible for colleges to withdraw their offer of admission.
Well, in the past, I guess they used to sometimes they'd have students be put on probation because they've experienced that senior slump you were talking about. So I guess what you're saying in some cases that it's like you're not even on probation. In order to be accepted, you have to maintain the level of work that you've been doing up to this point.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, the students when they arrive at college have to be prepared to step up in terms of the level of work they're doing. Mm-hmm. And if they've just essentially taken a year off, they're probably going to be unprepared or less prepared or have less intention of making that step. And then the other thing that's becoming increasingly important in this process is the application essay itself.
So the essay in the application, so the student basically says, here's why I think I would be a good student, a good fit for your university. Yeah,
that's more on the private side. The public colleges still look heavily at the numbers, the SAT, ACT, GPA numbers. Mm-hmm. The private colleges, are looking for more the well-rounded student and are looking for that application essay.
Now, something that we've talked about, or different people have talked about, is this business of students getting involved in extracurricular activities. So like community service work, maybe that they do as a volunteer outside of school, or maybe involvement in some of the programs for students at the school. So is that something that the universities would pick up mostly from the essay again, or is this something that they'll just get from the application, or how does that work?
Yes, I mean that's a factor, especially for the private colleges. Let's not forget, though, that it typically goes by GPA, the rigor of the courses, the SAT or ACT score, then the essay, and then we get into something like the leadership aspects and the community aspects.